Okay, Shalom. All praises and glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah, Ba'Shem Rakar Kwadash. Also, I'd like to say Shalom to the elders apostles of Great Millstone. As well, I'd like to say Shalom to the Akim that's sincerely in the faith of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah. My name is Lamadia, and this video will be a review on the book of Jude 1 and 6, as well as 2 Peter's 2 and 4. The reason being that these scriptures must be reviewed because these scriptures are very controversial and a lot of people do not understand these scriptures. Because when the Bible, the way the Bible is written figuratively. And oftentimes people would take things that's figuratively or things that's figurative in the Bible, and they'll take it literally, and things that's literal, they'll take it figurative. But the ones that understand the scriptures, their eyes was open, are the ones that's of the elect. So I'm just going to get into it. And this is the book of Jude 1, and I'm going to start at 5. And it reads, I would therefore put you in remembrance, though you once knew this, how that the Lord has saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed them that believe not. Now the people that was delivered out of Egypt is referencing towards the Israelites. Now just because it don't say Israel, that don't mean it's not referencing towards Israel. Like the Lord doesn't have to keep reiterating that this book is for Israel. But when you read on, it says, and after destroyed them that believe not, which was the other nations. And also, when the Lord delivered them, and when they was in the wilderness, you know, the Israelites that was in unbelief, the Lord killed them in the wilderness. So now let's jump right into verse 6, and it says, and the angels was kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation. He have reserved in everlasting chains on the darkness unto the judgment of the great day. So people read that scripture, and as soon as they read it, their mind just start creating. And they have this idea that it's talking about hell, a place of future judgment that you burn for eternity if you didn't accept blue-eyed Jesus. Well, it's not talking about that, you know. And I'm gonna read, before I break it down, I'm gonna read the same thing in 2 Peter's, the 2nd chapter. Then I'm gonna go back, because pretty much 2 Peter's is reiterating what the book of Jude is said. So 2 Peter's 2 and 6. I'm sorry, not 6, 2 and 4. For if the Most High spare not the angels that sin, but cast them down to hell, and deliver them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. So now they see the word hell, and they just start, you know, creating. Now, first of all, angels don't sin. All right? Because angels are not in sinful bodies. We are in sinful bodies. So now I'm going to go back to the book of Jude. Salakia. I'm going to go back to the book of Jude, because I went to 2 Peter so you can see that both scriptures is reiterating each other. To go back to Jude 1 and 6. So now when it reads, and the angels which kept not their first estate. Now their first estate is talking about the body of immortality. Now, who are the angels that's referencing towards to? It's not referencing towards the angels that's in heaven. It's talking about going back to the time of Adam. The Most High reference them as angels. Sometimes reference them as being gods. And the first estate that I'm sorry, read it. Which kept not their first estate. So the first estate that they did not keep was that a state of immortality, because once Adam had sinned, death entered into the world. So he transitioned from the state of immortality to mortality, because through sin, death entered into the world. Okay. That's why it says, you know what? Let's go to the Apocrypha. Second Esdras 4 and 30. So it says, for the grain of evil seed had been sown in the heart of Adam from the beginning. What's the evil seed? Sin. And it was sown in the heart of Adam from the beginning. And how much ungodliness, with ungodliness is sin, with sin is the breaking of the law. And it says, how much ungodliness had it brought up until this time? And how much shall it yet bring forth until the time of threshing come? See? So once Adam had sinned, that's when wickedness entered into the earth. And when wickedness entered into the earth, that's when death entered into the earth. Because that's the reason why we're not at peace. That's the reason why we develop diseases and so on and so forth, because of sin. Okay. Now let's go from there to Genesis, because the point is in Adam. Let's go to Genesis, and I'm gonna start at 1, and eventually I'm gonna segue it back to Jude, the first chapter. And it says, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and the daughters were born unto them, the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair. Now the sons of God is referencing to the people of Adam. And they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit should not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days should be 120 years. See that? So it says yet his days should be 120 years, because before that men lived for eternity. You know, well, the Most High created man to live for eternity, but it didn't play out that way because through sin. That's why it says my spirit should not always strive with man, because the spirit slowly started leaving man. That's why I said, for that he also is flesh. And real quick, let me go to Romans 8 and 7. And it says, because the carnal mind is enmity against the Most High. Now, the word carnal derives from the Latin word carne, which means flesh. So when you say carnal mind, you also could say pretty much the fleshly mind. So it says, because the carnal mind is enmity, meaning enemy or against the Most High. So the flesh is contrary to the Most High, because the flesh that we in is lust after sin. For it's not subject unto the law of the Most High, neither indeed can be. So they that are in the flesh cannot please the Most High. See that? So it says, so then they that are in the flesh cannot please the Most High. That's why let's go back to Genesis the 6th chapter, when the Lord said, His spirit shall not always strive with men, because it says, they that are in the flesh cannot please the Most High, because the flesh is contrary of the laws of the Most High, and contrary to righteousness. So that's why it says, my spirit shall not always strive with men, for they are also, for that he also is flesh. Like we just read, the flesh cannot please the Most High, because the flesh wants to do everything that's unacceptable with the Most High, which once you step over and doing something that's unacceptable with the Most High, you now find yourself in sin. And when you find yourself in sin, you also find yourself being judged through death. So it said, yet his days should be 120 years. Now let's go back to Romans 5:14. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moses, even over them that have not sinned. They go sin again. So it says, even over them that have not sinned after the similitude of Adam's transgression, who is the figure of him that was to come. So once Adam had sinned, death reigned. That's why when you read in Jude, it speaks about for the angel that had sinned and were cast into hell. Or 2 Peter 2:4. And it speaks the angel that sinned and were cast into hell. Now hell represents the grave of death. Because once they sin, that's when death followed after sin. So now let's go back to Genesis 6. And it says, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days should be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men. So now, when it's the word there for giant in the Hebrew is Napoleon. That's where they get the phrase Nephilim from. Well, Napoleon means fallen ones, because giant means a person of like figurative, like the word giant figurative means a person of high regard. Like you have the phrase big businesses, or they call them giant companies. Or a person that's mastered the realm that they're in, they'll look at as a giant in their world. So it's not talking about a person that, as in height, it's talking about giants as far as stature, as far as social status. So that's what, when you look at the word up, it means fallen ones, because they fell. They fell from who they were supposed to be onto this ordinary beings, because we were supposed to live for eternity, but we didn't live for eternity. We became mortals. That's why when you read in fact, go to Psalms 82. And 5, and it say, they know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundation of the earth are out of course. I have said ye are gods, going back to the people of Adam, was also the Lord references them as being angels. I have said ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. That's why it references him as the Son of God. But ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. See, they shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. So they went from immortality, that was their first estate. So they transferred immortality to mortality. Well, mortality meaning being susceptible to die. That's why it's the word Nephilim is there for. That's what and fall like one of the princes. Because when you fall, you die. Okay, so now I'm going back to Jude. Uh, 1 and 6. And it says, and the angels were kept not their first estate. I broke it down, break it down again. The angels represent towards the people of Adam. Their first estate was immortality, but left their own habitation, and he have reserved in the everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. Now, I'll read that again, but they left their own the habitation is your body, of course. Because the word body itself mean house. Now, because they have these these bodies that could live for a long time, but then their lifespan starts to decrease. And he said, have reserved in everlasting chains under darkness. That the chains is referencing towards being captive, or being a servant or a slave or a prisoner, because we became servant unto sin. Okay? And darkness represents, the word darkness represents something that's void of light. Because scriptures is light, and when you outside of the scriptures, you're in darkness. And darkness also represents sin. So that's what it says, being chains or everlasting chains under darkness, being subject or being prisoners to sin unto the judgment of the great day. Because what led to the judgment of the great day? Sin. That's all the scripture was talking about. And to prove that, I'm going to go to the book of Romans. Just in case anybody wants to dispute that. Let's break it down. It's talking about that. Now, this is the book of Romans 6 and 20. And it says, for when ye were the servants of sin, see, servant, that's what it says, chains of darkness. Darkness represents sin. Chains mean being a servant or prisoner. For when ye were the servants of sin, ye were free from righteousness. So there you go. We were servants of sin. Now it says, what fruit had ye then? What fruit had ye then in those things whereof ye are now ashamed? For the end of those things is death. But it says, verse 22, but now being made free from sin and become servants unto the Most High, ye have your fruit unto holiness, and the end everlasting life. For the wages of sin is death. So what is wages? Wages are payments. So the payment for breaking the law or committing the act of sin is death. So what happened was when Adam sinned, that was the payment. Death entered into the world. But it says, but the gift of the Most High is eternal life through Yahushua. Because that's why scripture speaks about Yahushua set us free. You know, or it said the truth will set you free. Now let's go from there to Romans 8 and 21 and see what that say now. It says, because the creature itself also should be delivered from the bondage of corruption. The bondage is talking about bondage again, represent servant to or prisoner. Corruption is sin. And how the creature represents us. And how are we going to be delivered through Yahushua? So it says, because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption unto the glorious liberty of the children of the Most High. Now let's jump from there to verse 33. Let me see. No, that was pretty much on that. Let's go to John 8 and 33. I'm sorry. St. John 8 and 33. Let's start at 31. Then said Yahushua to those Jews which believed on him, if ye continue in my word, then are ye my disciples indeed, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. See that? The truth shall make you free. What is the truth? The faith that we have in Yahushua. And that faith that we have in Yahushua is set us free from the law. Because now we're living pretty much off Yahushua's reputation. That's why scriptures say Yahushua set us free from the curse of the law. What's the curse of the law? It's death. So we're not being penalized for breaking the law, because we're not under the reputation of Yahushua. All right, we're righteous through our faith we have in Yahushua. Now I'm gonna read on, and it says, they answered him, we be Abraham's seed, and we never in bondage to any man. How sayest thou, ye should be made free? Yahushua answered them, verily, verily, I say unto you, whosoever committeth sin is the servant of sin. You see that? Whosoever committeth sin is the servant of sin. That's why I talk about the chains of darkness, the chains of sin. Now, let's go back to Jude. We're going to review it again, and we're going to go to 2 Peter's, showing that it's saying the same exact thing. Now, the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation. Now, the first estate is talking about the state of immortality, and their own habitation represent towards their bodies. He have reserved to everlasting chains. The chains represent servitude or being prisoners. And then it says under darkness. Darkness represents sin. Unto the judgment of the great day. Now what's the great day? The great day that's coming when Yahushua is going to return simultaneously with the nuclear destruction. Why is the destruction happening? Because of the act of sin. Now let's go from there to 2 Peter's, right? And I'm going to show you that it's all saying the same thing, how everything ties in together. 2 Peter's 2 and 4. For if the Most High spared not the angels that sinned, again, the angels represent toward the people of Adam, but cast them down to hell. Now, hell is not talking about this place you go after death and you're tormented for eternity and fire. It's not talking about that. The word hell just simply means the grave. When you die, that's all it means. It means the grave or death. So it says, but cast down to hell. It was cast to death and delivered into chains of darkness. There you go again, chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. Okay. Now let's go to let me see. All right, 2 Peter 2 and 19, you scroll down. It says, while they promised them liberty, they themselves are, I'm sorry, I can't see that. Okay, while they promise them liberty, they themselves are the servant of corruption. Other servants of corruption is talking about servants of sin. Now the liberty is us being free from sin and the penalty of sin through our faith in Yahweh Shah. That's the liberty. For of whom a man is overcome, of the same is he brought in bondage. So let's go to Romans one last time. 7 and 22. See, the whole chapter is good. I'm gonna start at verse 18. No, 17. Now then, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. Now, who's speaking? This is the Apostle Paul. So it says, for I know that in him that is in my flesh dwelleth no good thing. See? It says in the flesh dwelleth no good thing, because the flesh, that's why Scripture said the flesh cannot please the Most High. When you read that earlier. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good, I found not. Now the word good itself, the word good derives from the word God. So when you say a person is good, you're saying that that person is godly. If that person is godly, meaning that person doing all the things that is acceptable unto the Most High. But he says, but how to perform that which is good or godly, I found not. Because the flesh cannot please the Most High. And the only way we please the Most High right now is not through the flesh, by keeping the law, it's through faith. The faith that we have in Yahweh Shah. So verse 19, it says, for the good that I would do, for the good that I would, I do not. But the evil which I will not, that I do. Now if I do that which I will not, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwell in me. I find then a law that when I will do good, evil is present with me. For I delight in the law of the Most High after the inward man. But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind. Because the flesh, the Most High gave us a law, but the flesh want to abide another law. You know, the Most High tells us to do one thing, but the flesh want to do something else. That's what Paul meant when he says, but I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind. Because we have the law that's given unto us, but then your flesh want to abide something else. And it says, and bringing me into captivity, there we go the word captivity, because a person that's in captivity, that person's in bondage, that person's in chains or yokes. So it says, bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members. See, they go to slavery and servants and prisoner thing again. So verse 24, it said, O wretched man that I am, who should deliver me from this body of this death? So Paul referenced the bodies that we in, death. That's why the scriptures say we was cast into hell. Now let's go back and we're gonna close with that. 2 Peter 2 and 4. Now keep in mind, Paul referenced these bodies of death. So it says, for if God spare not the angels that sin, but cast them down to hell. The hell is these bodies. Where the word hell means death. And delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment. So with that, I'm going to close. I hope this video was edifying. And until next time, shalom.